Dear Mr. or Mrs. Listener, we accept the fact that you're going to sacrifice a whole hour to listen to this podcast, but we think you are crazy. In the simplest terms, you see us as you want to see us. A Ninja Turtle, a Jedi, a redhead, a Mike. Sincerely yours, Redhead Family Therapy Guy, and a Mike.
Don't you forget about the bugger. So walk on by. You better listen to this thing. It's gonna be great. All right, we're back. It's the Redhead Family Therapy Guy
And a Mike.
podcast. Dude, I'm so excited. So Mike and I got on to tape probably like 35 minutes ago. We just chatted for 35 minutes. And I so needed us to just talk, dude. I mean, we work at the same place and we talk a lot with work, but this week we haven't talked a bunch. And
yeah, it's been a busy week. Work's been busy in general.
Yeah, I realized how much I needed to just chat. So hopefully today will be a great discussion as we're jumping into, it's a good one.
Big Trouble in Little China.
That's right. This is such, I forgot how freaking awesome and wonderful this movie was. Cause I watched it a bunch, but not like, I probably should have watched it a lot more because it's so much fun, so quotable.
And it is. I just think Kurt Russell is amazing in it.
He's so
he is
good.
Really amazing.
He's
in this
really good.
movie.
The character.
I mean, he's got a lot of good movies.
Oh, sure.
That I just grew up watching.
Well, this
is
definitely, even though this movie did not do well at the box office, this still was an iconic role, and I think definitely launched him. I don't know where it falls in his portfolio of movies, but
not sure.
I mean, he just carries himself so well. He's just great. I mean, the movie does not work without Kurt Russell being Kurt Russell, like the man's man that he is.
And what is his name? Mr. Egg or Egg? Is it just Egg? The old Asian Oriental guy, Chinese
the bad guy?
What he is. No, the good one that is like the sorcerer that helps them.
He's so fun.
I think it's
the wise, the crotchety, wise.
So I loved The Golden Child as a kid, and he's in that. And then I also loved, I really enjoyed the Three Ninja movies, which he's in that. And so I always loved his character, and it's just something about, so he has the one eye that kind of like is shut. Yeah. And there's just something like, so I don't know, nostalgic for me whenever I see him in a movie.
That's how I feel when I see Miyagi.
Yeah, that's true. Miyagi too.
Anytime I see
although Miyagi's eye doesn't twitch, right? His eyes. He's got
the
pretty steady.
Stoic. He's got the perfect stoic, wise master that is you think is disapproving, but he's just like.
He plays the good mentor role, where the Egg character, I don't know his actual name, but the guy who plays the sorcerer in this, he plays a good, like, kind of mystic type character in my mind.
That's crotchety and kind of I'm looking, I've got the cast list here in front of me, surely. Victor Wong is his name.
Is that okay? Victor Wong.
Egg Shen.
Oh yeah, Egg Shen. Yes, I love his character in this movie. I mean, they're all good, but yes. Okay, so I feel like Jack Burton is awesome. Like, I love this character. It is so funny.
The opening monologue when he's driving the truck after we meet Mr. Egg Shen, and is being interviewed by the FBI guy in the green fire or whatever. Dude, his monologue in the freaking Pork Chop Express is hilarious. And I've got the line here from the one line, which I think is a foreshadowing of the movie.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
But he just delivers that whole thing as he's eating like his sub sandwich or whatever. It's so good. And he says, when some wide-eyed 8-foot tall manic grabs you by the neck, taps the back of your favorite. Sorry, I'm gonna start over. When some wild-eyed 8-foot tall manic grabs your neck, taps the back of your favorite head up against the ballroom wall. That's what it says. Oh, barroom wall. Looks looks you're choked in the eye and asks you if you've paid your dues, you just stare that sucker right back in the eye. And you remember what old Jack Burton always says at a time like that. Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. The check's in the mail. Sorry, I butchered that. But oh my goodness, it's so funny. It's always hilarious too. It's always a red flag to me in real life, not movie. Like Jack Burton's awesome and Kurt Russell's awesome as Jack Burton. But when I meet real people in real life that refer to themselves in the third person, I'm always like, red flag. I'm like, red flag. You should not talk about yourself in the third person, because it's like you're making yourself like a thing. It's like,
so I have a really interesting thought on this. So this is kind of sidebar to Big Trouble in Little China, but in the ACT model, so acceptance commitment therapy, we use diffusion a lot, or cognitive diffusion. And in cognitive diffusion, you're trying to separate kind of like yourself from the thought, like you're trying to create trigger, separation, right? Or from the emotion. And so with cognitive diffusion, there's a real simple tool where kind of a beginner tool, simple tool where let's say I'm having a thought of I'm a bad therapist. Then to use diffusion, I could say, wait a second, I notice that my mind is telling me I'm a bad therapist, or I notice,
my mind is saying, Breanne Brown says something like, she always says, my mind is trying to tell me whatever the negative thought is.
Exactly. Right. And it creates some separation, right?
My wife and I've used that in our fighting. Like if we're arguing, it's like, I'll say, my mind is trying to tell me that you're X or whatever.
Yeah. And so I've always liked that. Now, kind of coming to what you just mentioned, I was listening to something a while back. So just to give you some context, if you want to look this up, just look for something a while back. I can't remember what it was, but I was listening to a show, and it was probably on NPR, maybe, because I feel like I was in the car listening to the radio, not a podcast. And so if I'm listening to a show, it's probably NPR in the car, although I don't listen to NPR too much anymore. But anyways,
blaming liberal.
The show was talking about, and I can't remember which one it was, and I loved listening to the show because they would talk about different things from mental health nature. They were talking about a study that a university did on people who refer to themselves when speaking, and they actually were referring to how this the research had shown more emotional stability for those people in dealing with emotions or thoughts. And the cool thing was, it makes complete sense. Well, if you think about diffusion, and they made this point, they're like, when you speak about yourself, so if, Michael says this or Michael says that, it creates a separation. It's triggered. Almost as if you're speaking about another person.
You're triggering me. And the thing that I go to with this is individuals that I've known that have done this consistently seem to depersonalize and not integrate the thing. So I think I get what you're saying, that to do that diffuses or creates some barrier. But the people that I've known that I have this red trigger warning around if they talk to themselves in the third person are people that I've witnessed don't integrate and have emotional, like an emotional wall from integrating and being connected. Well, so I wonder if that's become a defense mechanism that I appreciate that it could be like an intervention kind of thing, but if you don't ever integrate, it could maybe be bad, right?
Well, it depends on how you're using it. And that's the same thing with cognitive diffusion, right? So the interesting thing is they use an example of LeBron James and how when he was leaving Cleveland to go to Miami, and everyone was really upset, like, hey, what the heck, you're leaving, you're betraying your city, whatever. And they gave an example that in a news conference, LeBron James spoke as if, he said something like, LeBron James needs to do what LeBron James needs to do. And it's really interesting because in that setting, I'm sure he's having a lot of disturbing thoughts.
They're just distressed by all the pressure.
And that gets him through that, right?
That moment.
And so it's a really interesting thing. Like, I get what you're saying, but it's a really interesting thought that I have whenever someone brings up speaking to or referring to themselves in that way, because it reminds me of really this model or the tool of cognitive diffusion, and how effective and helpful that can be in being able to create separation so that you can continue forward. And so those that speak in that way, you can utilize that as a beneficial tool, but I wouldn't use it all the time. And here's the thing: when you're doing the tool, my mind is telling me I'm a bad therapist.
I think it's great.
Usually you're doing it internally, not externally, which if you refer to yourself.
Well, I think it'd be great. Like if you're having a conversation with somebody that's really safe, it allows you to process those kind of triggers in that moment.
Yes.
So I think, I think it's a great a great tool to use with people that you can slow down and be able to talk through what's coming up for you, especially if there's somebody that won't be defensive, you know what I mean? And can realize that you're trying to do that. Like I said, my wife and I do it when we'll be in like pretty intense conversations, and it gets us being aware of where our distortions and fears versus, and what we're assuming about what the other person is motivated or means in that moment. And so, it's great. It's a great tool.
It is.
All right. So let's get back to this
Express. Yes.
Dude, let's get back to this quote, because I think it's foreshadowing, right? Because he talks about the 8-foot tall manic grabs your neck, right? Which is essentially what we see with Lo Pan and the dual nature of Lo Pan, let's say.
Yes.
The split personality of Lo Pan in the movie. And then I love the final line, right? Because have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. The check's in the mail, which also kind of suggests that he's not paid his dues, that it's a bad check that he sent in the mail, right? Which is great because Jack Burton's kind of like egocentric. And the thing that's so awesome about him is that he is egocentric and like, Jack Burton can handle this, though he has no idea what he's dealing with, has no idea what he's going to do or how he's going to get through it. He's just going to go.
The coolest thing about this hero is he is the most oblivious, lucky action hero out there, and it makes it wonderful.
It's so fun.
Like when they finally get to Lo Pan, is it Lo Pan or Lo Pan? I think Lo Pan.
Lo Pan, yeah. L-O-P-A-N.
When they finally get to Lo Pan, when he's doing this ritual, and they're kind of hiding right over to the side, and then Lo Pan senses them with that like one-eyed or that three-eyed monster thing.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, it's called what is it called? It's called a beholder. A beholder?
Yeah,
it's
maybe
like
a beholder.
Is that like a very famous D&D bad guy?
It's like I think it's a beholder. And so the three-eyed monster beholder sees them, and they all do kind of their war cry, right? And Jack Burton does his war cry and shoots his gun, and what happens? The ceiling falls on his head and knocks him out.
Protects him from
which is probably good, right?
Because he
probably would have got himself killed if he ran in right.
He has no business running in with the three. Now, and also let's digress for a minute, because these three Lo Pan minion ninja samurai warriors are the freaking coolest ever. And the intro and the introduction to these bad guys in the show is so freaking cool. They're running around these alleys of Chinatown, wherever, and they are introduced and come down and break up these two factions warring in the streets of Chinatown, and are introduced with their hats. I remember as a kid being like, those hats make them look so bad, because they're like just come down like under their eyes. So and it's almost like they're
film. Yeah, it looks so intimidating. Like,
because it's almost like they're fighting from a meditated state, because like they don't need their eyes almost, right, with these hats or whatever. But
I remember in the 90s, was it in the 90s when Mortal Kombat started getting really big?
Yes, and they totally.
I remember seeing that game, and I'm like, holy crap, this is Big Trouble Little China.
It's that guy. Yeah, that's why he was my favorite.
I don't remember
what was his name?
I can't remember the fighter's name. I can't remember, because I get the names mixed up between that and Street Fighter, which I played Street Fighter a lot. I didn't play Mortal Kombat.
It totally is.
But I remember the Mortal Kombat movie too. But
we were correct. It was a beholder.
It is a beholder. Yeah. So then, you were correct. You remembered. I just went with it. But yeah, he is. I remember seeing
Raiden.
That's right. Raiden. I remember seeing Mortal Kombat as a, I don't remember how old I was, but in the 90s, and then seeing the movie and thinking, man, this is like the dudes from Big Trouble Little China.
Well, and like Raiden was the only finishing move I could actually do in Mortal Kombat. So that's why
I don't think I might have played Mortal Kombat like once or twice.
Totally.
I was big Street Fighter. I played Street Fighter all the time on Super Nintendo.
Well, Street Fighter 2 in the arcade, I was no joke with the army guy with the mohawk.
Man, I'm trying to think. Whenever I would go to an arcade, I think I would always play skee ball. I don't know that I played a lot.
Played a lot of Street Fighter
video games. I would play. Kombat. I played a little bit of Street Fighter 2 in the arcade.
The game that I absolutely rocked on the Game Boy, dude. I could absolutely annihilate people at Tetris. If we hooked in, like, you don't want to play Tetris with me, man. You don't play with me.
My wife plays a lot of Tetris. She likes it a lot.
I was really good.
Yeah, I didn't ever have a Game Boy. I had friends that had Game Boys.
I did.
And they all had Tetris, but
that was no joke at Tetris. So the introduction of these bad guys. Now, one of the things that I had so much fun laughing, because I don't remember which of the three guys it is, but the one guy that has that
expands,
the Vorpalish kind of little throwing knife sword.
Oh yeah,
and he does this forward flip and then lands and then throws it. So whoa.
They all do some wonky moves every once in a while, and it's really funny. Like moves. The angles some of the angles they jump from, you're like, how are they going in that directory?
Well, the scene that you talk about where Jack Burton, old Jack, gets knocked out by the debris falling from his gunshot from the ceiling. The scene of what's the guy that wants his girlfriend back? What's his name? And it's really hard because I'm looking at IMDb, but all the pictures is they're old. So, the one guy, one of the,
I can't remember.
Okay. Oh, it's hilarious.
Peter or Pete, I can't remember.
Let's see, Grace.
He's the
it must have been Wang Chung. No, it's Wang Chung. Wang Chi. Okay, and Peter, just for the record,
way off.
The three bad guys. Yeah, it's not. Come on, dude. He's Asian. The three bad guys were Thunder, Rain, and Lightning. Just for the record.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't think I knew that. Thunder, rain, and lightning.
Is that awesome?
That is awesome.
So obviously lightning. Now, when I was a kid, I remember lightning coming down on that lightning stream. So freaking awesome. Dude.
Oh yeah.
And the thing that's so great about this movie is of course you've got the 80s sound, which I have realized that I love 80s movie music.
Yeah.
I just love 80s. And then you've got the neon 80s going on, the neon light behind the skull in that layer scene is freaking great. And then just the sounds, the sounds of the special effects are incredible in this movie. The sounds of the kung fu are incredible in this movie. The sound of this movie and the look of this movie and the fact that it's spoofy and fun is just,
there's something about movies in the 80s, even Batman, there's something that we talked about last time. There's something about the sets, sets and the way they did the movie, this Big Trouble in Little China. I had that thought too as I was watching it. I was like, man, I love these sets. They're real sets. It's none of it's computer generated. It looks real. And they have a lot of they don't computer generate the crowds either, right? Or the fighting. It's all real people. And I feel that was what was cool about Batman is in Gotham City, the same thing. The sets were design sets. Now, some of it was, of course, you could tell miniature sets or sometimes the scene was a painted background. But this one, Big Trouble Little China, I feel it was really, and I feel when they were in the last, that later scene, not the last scene, but the later scene with Lopan, where he's doing the ritual
in his lair.
I feel it was in a mall. I wonder if they rented a mall with an escalator and then revamped the whole thing. I love that. Cool. And I think that's what's so cool about Heidi, who we had on in the past. Her dad, his career was a stagehand for IATSE doing all these movies. And I think that's what is really cool is they used to do, I feel so much more with set development than I feel most movies do now. They still do sets, but a lot of it's green screen.
Yeah. And it just, some of it looks great.
It does.
But it doesn't. but it
takes
doesn't
away from that
feel
nostalgic feel for me.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like Return of the Jedi. Like it doesn't feel like Big Trouble in Little China. You know, it doesn't feel like these movies. All right, let me ask you a lore question. So, what do you make of what's going on with Lo Pan and the Green Eyes? And like, I don't know anything about mystic horror genre of Asian cultures or whatever. I don't know if Lo Pan and his is like a throwback to some ancient or some kind of Asian
I don't
lore
know
or something like that.
There's just some power in the rarity, right, of an green eyes, or there's something that I think there must be some semblance between green eyes and power.
Well, I thought it was interesting,
rejuvenation.
you know, that he decides to. So Lo Pan is like this broken, silly little guy. The one scene where he's all like going around, he's like being all crazy and like.
Well, they say in the movie, which makes sense, because in the movie, don't they say like 2,000 years ago the king enslaved him or something? Remember,
like there's a deal for like his soul or something that
no,
he was, like,
it wasn't
bound to.
It wasn't. Well, that might have been part of it, but it was. I got the impression from that scene that he was not tortured, but definitely kind of mistreated. And I think that's probably what led to kind of his fanaticism, craziness in trying to.
Well, also too, your soul just gets stretched
or whatever,
right?
or
like
immortalized
if you're immortalized, your soul just gets stretched and worn. You know, it's one of the things I finished Rhythm of War.
Oh, did you?
Out to Salt Lake, yeah. And I think it's really disheartening, but also profoundly interesting that.
Do you remember the dog and the dragon?
Yeah,
story?
I took
we
note
should
of it.
talk about that.
We should talk about
really awesome.
I took note. I took note of it. But it's interesting that the heralds are really like they're going crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of the strain of holding off evil in the iterations or rounds that's going on as they fight. You know, it's not that the last battle is the Wheel of Time.
One, it's interesting because, you know, there's been this betrayal. I don't want to get too far into it, but I find it really interesting. There's been this betrayal, but at the same time, you kind of have this soft spot for how much torture that probably is to deal with.
It's such an interesting symbol that Brandon Sanderson used to hold back the Void Bringers with them suffering. But then there's the betrayal, but the one guy's back and he holds them off longer than they ever have been held off,
which is
he holds, and it's interesting too because he doesn't
cool.
He's totally crazy, but he doesn't seem to have any malice towards them. That they left him. It was just like, I tried to give you all the time you could have ever had, and then the heralds don't even do anything with it. They just abandon the people. For tragic. All right, we're
probably because of shaming. Yeah, we could.
We got to.
We should do an episode. Maybe we can on our drive. Maybe
that should be our drive.
Maybe we can chat about it.
Like do some couple parts of. All right, you've got if you've hung on this long in our podcast, you've got some exciting stuff coming up because Michael and I will have some road tripping. We've got 3 hours of driving each direction to Louisiana from Memphis, and so you're going to get some road background noise and some podcasts taped on the road.
High quality.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So anyway, so what do you make of this lore and this idea? So the lore is that he needs the blood. Is he just sucking it out of, like, he pokes them with his
it
little,
looks like
and he's just like licking it and sucking it out of their bodies?
Sure. Like, it seemed like at one point, like maybe it was coming through this needle into him or something, and then at one point you see him like licking it and stuff.
And the idea of
and he's mortalizing himself.
Yeah, and the idea is that he's taking both of them because he actually wants to keep the girl because she's like this hot Asian princess or whatever.
Yeah, because it's so rare to be Asian and green-eyed, which I don't know. I have no idea if that's even true.
Are there green? I think there are green-eyed.
There has Asian to be
women for sure.
I think probably,
but it's got to be.
The ratio is probably brown eye. It would be my guess.
Mm-hmm. And everybody makes a big deal of green-eyed redheads, but actually blue-eyed redheads, which I am, is much more rare than green-eyed redheads. Green eyes and red hair.
Man, I don't even know anything about eyes besides you see out of them.
Eyes are a fascinating part of the human anatomy for sure.
I don't know. I'm not sure how he was doing that, but yeah, my understanding was as he consumed the blood in whatever fashion
So
he
he
did,
wanted to be
he became
immortalized.
mortal. Yeah.
And how hilarious that he becomes decently mortal. And then I love the like Kurt Russell or
Yeah.
Jack Burton's like just like standing there, and the dude like chucks the knife. He's like, back in your forehead. It's so awesome. Like,
well, that's
it's
his
so,
one superpower is his reflexes, right?
yeah,
Which are
his
really
reflexes,
cool.
which is really interesting, right? Because, well, and he says that too. Again, this is part of the foreshadowing, because he says something about, you know, he only drives as fast as he can, you know, he only drives as fast as he can in darkness or something.
Sure.
So that he can react or something. So they make multiple references to that in the foreshadowing.
Something that I think is really interesting, you know, I feel like there is kind of this there's always kind of been this trend towards longevity, right? People want to
live forever.
And yet you have this movie where there is
Fear
an
of
immortal
mortality.
person, and this immortal thing, Lopan, wants to become mortal. He doesn't want to be immortal anymore.
Well, he's weakened. I guess isn't he weakened in his immortal state? Like he's stretched, or maybe he also can't. I think there's a reference to he can't experience the passions of the natural man in his immortal state.
It goes
right?
to say, like, in our you know, the way our bodies, the way we are in this existence, do we really want to live forever? Right.
Well, no, I mean, I think a part of wanting to live forever is living in the idyllic, you know, tip of like the high, you know, like at your best performing decade or whatever it is, which is really interesting because, you know, everybody thinks of like the 20s or whatever, but like I feel good in my 40s, you know, I still feel really healthy and good. You know, I don't know if we like celebrate youth in our culture, but like 30s and 40s have been really healthy and fully operational for me.
You know, I think probably it seems that, you know, the longer people exist on this earth, it seems like that age is kind of pushed back, right?
Yeah,
I would definitely say 100 200 years ago, I'm sure they would say a lot younger of an age, right?
So in this comparison or this duality of Lopan, you know, the guy scooting around on his wheelchair, or listen to one of the lines from Jack Burton. This is so funny. Somebody says something about Lopan, and he says, well, which Lopan, the little old basket case on wheels or the 10-foot tall roadblock? These lines are so good in this movie.
He is awesome.
So hilarious.
And it's great because he's got these really good quips, right?
Oh my goodness.
And he's got this kind of this personality that's you know, real kind of sure of himself.
Well, it's, you know, it's interesting. I wonder if we could compare this some of the quality that makes him so fantastic comparing to Bill Murray, right? There's this sense of ego, but also this sense of a really good guy, right?
So here, I think you're absolutely right. And I want to throw another one out for you that kind of jumped to my mind as I was watching him. And I wonder where Kurt Russell got his influence for this. But I thought of Han Solo, like Harrison Ford as Han or Han Solo.
Like the macho, awesome, hot guy, but is really, and he's totally like confident, but also like he knows he doesn't know things, and he's like putting on, and he's dealing with his unknowingness through kind of jabbing humor, you know, and he's inflated himself,
right? He pokes in good humor at people.
Yeah, and he's inflated himself, but he also can take like failure or abject like ignorance about a situation.
Like, you know,
right?
Han and Chewie, right? They did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs or whatever. But, you know, I think it's interesting because there is some accomplishments. And I feel like with Jack, you know, he has some some of these talents, right? Like his reflexes are insane. Like it's really cool. So he has some stuff to back it up, right?
This is the line. Like I always told my last wife, I say, which is just a great intro. To my last wife. It's like suggesting he's had lots of wives. My last wife, I say, honey, I never drive faster than I can see. Besides that, it's all in the reflexes. Who talks about themselves like that? I freaking love it. It's hilarious. And one of the lines too, everybody relax, I'm here.
Well, and I think it's also interesting I think I said in 12 parsecs, in less than 12 parsecs. But anyways, I'm sorry. That's a tangent of Star Wars. But I think it's also interesting the end scene where, they're like, hey, are you going to kiss her when Jack's leaving? And he turns and he's like, no, and just walks off. What do you make of that? Like it was great. I thought it was awesome because it's kind of just him, right? He just does his own thing, marches to the beat of his own drum. I wondered if there was semblance to that, or if it was symbolic or something, or meaningful. I didn't know.
I think it's one dynamic of, in one sense, it's like the honorable thing to do because he's not sticking around. Like he's on the road, right?
True.
Like he's going from place to place. And so it's like part of his machoism or part of his manly manness is like, I'm not staying. Like you're not going to anchor me down. I'm not going to be a family man, right? Like I'm a guy, I'm a truck driver. I'm the guy that like brings you your goods and fights off the evil Lopans of the universe. You know what I mean? I'm just a regular man that can, quell the evils of the universe, And so I think one aspect of it is that. And also too, it's like, well, he already did kiss her, he's just kind of, it's like in the most I wonder what a female would say of this, of like, how kind of bad that is. Like, yeah, I already kissed you and rocked your socks and now I'm moving on, like
it's interesting
catch me next time.
Because it seems like, I think it's interesting because it doesn't seem like a happy life just on your own truck driving, and not I feel like with a relationship, there's so much stretch and growth that comes from it, even though there's pain within that at times. And for him, it's to be on his own, right? That's where, and so I feel like that's an interesting ending, but it fits his character, right? It makes me chuckle, but at the same time, I'm like, I wonder. I mean, he just wants to go and ride off into the rainy, doomy day.
Yeah, that's who he is. I mean, he's gonna go out and tell stories and bring pork chops to. There is a line, I'm trying to find it. I thought I saw it in some of his, but here it is. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Would you stop rubbing your body up against mine, because I can't concentrate when you do that. It's like, I think it's like when they're
and I love because he just speaks his thoughts, right?
Yeah, right. Like and he's so good natured about it, right? Like what he is. Like he is just like this macho guy. Like there's no real mystery about who Jack Burton is. You know what I mean?
Well, because he doesn't care, right? He doesn't care what people think. He's just going to say what he's going to say, and he's going to be.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But he's also not pretentious, right? I mean, that's why it's
he's not mean. Like I don't feel like he's rude or mean.
No,
he just is who he is. He's
right.
Secure in himself. But then
inflated in himself.
Yes, but it's interesting because it's at the same time it's like, oh, okay, he's a nice guy, but then he doesn't, like, there's no real life there, it's him going from one job to the next.
The life is that you can count on him to at least be a part of defeating the Lopans of the universe. Okay, this is one of my favorite lines right here. I remember laughing my butt off in this one. Sit. I think they're getting ready to like go out and go into the, like when they go on the wilderness journey through the like the sewers or whatever. So before leaving, he's like, sit tight, hold the fort, keep the home fires burning, and if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
Oh yeah, I do remember that one.
That line?
I do remember that one.
So great. So one of the other things with Lopan, like, so you get Lopan, you get his ninja minions who are the forces of nature, which is kind of interesting to think about. You've got this immortal guy and his minions are thunder, lightning, and what was the other? Did I say thunder, lightning, and rain?
And rain, yeah.
And then you've got like, at this point, somewhere at the halfway point in the movie, when they're, especially like when they go through the one warehouse and then get into the underbelly of the world, it's interesting that that's where then you get these few monsters. I think there's like 3. There's like the beholder, and then there's like the hairy monkey savage thing that's also climbing on the truck as he's
at the end,
final monologue, which I always thought was really cool as a kid, because I was like, what's that? Like, it's just, well, it's kind of just like the idea of the
it unknown. Reminds me of Razor in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
But it's this interesting metaphor of like the darkness is always lurking out there and coming for you. It's a little bit of the unknown, and that's what's really cool about the unknown sophistry or our mysticism of this movie, is like that there is this unknown in the world that's out there lurking, and it does a great job of playing with that.
It's very mysterious, right?
Yeah,
there's a lot of mystery and
a lot of darkness, unknown darkness,
which I love about this movie. And I feel like, oh man, it would be so cool if they would have maybe done a follow or something more with it, because it really could have, or even like a TV show, a good TV show, because I feel like so much more you could delve into that would be good and exciting. But it's also great just as a one-off, right? At this point I wouldn't do anything with it, because it's just a classic.
A reboot would be cool, but it would be almost impossible to have another Jack Burton.
That's the same thing I was thinking about Back to the Future. I was like, man, I don't know how you could recast, like if you did a reboot Marty. Of it. I just don't know.
So good.
And just a little side tangent. I saw an article the other day saying Christopher Lloyd is going to be in Mandalorian season 3. I don't know how truthful that is or not, but I thought that was
he
really
would be great. Cool. He's such a gnarly old guy.
Yeah.
Doc. I think they could do a big level. Like for me, it would work if it was like like he had some kid. Like in his trucker days, like, so it wouldn't have to be like you were rebooting.
It could be a sequel.
It could be like a sequel, not instead of a reboot. Like it could be like kind of a son, reboot, like a long lost son that like finds out. Like Kurt Russell could make like a cameo or something. In the beginning, or
and it wouldn't have to like he wouldn't have to have his same personality. It could be his own unique in the
self, same right. It could just be in the same genre.
They could definitely do that. But
because you could totally make it fun and play off of the spoofiness, because we need some of those spoofy, silly, don't take yourself too seriously. I think movies, I think with the whole like we were talking about with the progression of the iterations of Batman, where it's gotten more and more serious instead of playful and spoofy. It's like they don't think, or they don't want to spend money on spoofy movies.
And it's really cool. It's kind of it's kind of like Galaxy Quest also, where it is kind of like this movie that's like a spoof, right? But it's a movie. It's not just like a play-by-play funny version of a movie, right? It's actually its own movie. It kind of plays on a genre. And I feel like Big Trouble, like those types of movies, I feel like are really good, but I don't feel like we get a lot of that anymore. The other thought I had is, what kind of happened to, I feel like in the 80s, we had Golden Child, you have Big Trouble Little China, you have Gremlins, you have like all these movies that kind of have this dark Asian flair, like mysterious flair to it. And maybe I'm just not noticing it now, but I feel like we had a good movement of that. And I really love like all those movies I love.
Me too.
And they have that kind of Asian flair. And that's what actually my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's degree, I did in history, and one of my major concentration was Asian history, and I think it's just from that, because I've always been intrigued by Asian culture, and I feel like we haven't had that, and I haven't seen that as much in movies, where in the 80s I feel like you had kind of this strand, and there's other movies, we had this strand of movies where there was like this Asian mysterious theme to the movies that I really enjoyed and I thought were really fun.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. And it seems like it fits a little bit of that. Like, I remember as a kid feeling like Godzilla versus, King Kong or whatever were ridiculous. But now I really appreciate what they're doing, and I think it's great. Like I love that it has holes and it's kind of silly. Like I really enjoyed the Godzilla movies a lot, even though it's like I think in my older age, like in my middle age, like in like my 20s and 30s, I wanted movies to be serious or seem really real. But now I'm okay with a movie not being real. I wonder if it's like we want the movies and the movie that we're seeing and the place it takes us to like totally work and be real. But it's like, no, it cannot. Like it can just be playful and silly. And can we just appreciate like what we learn or what we laugh through? I mean, because like Big Trouble in Little China, like I watched it with Jack and we were laughing. Like he was like, this is so ridiculous. And Sarah came in, she's like, this is so ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah, but that's why it's so fun. Like it's just great. Like it's Jack Burton's just ridiculous. He's this uber male, that thinks he knows everything, but he knows he doesn't. But like I can figure it out.
It's
which
ridiculous,
he does.
but it grabs you because there's also an interesting story. Like you want to know, and I feel like that was really neat too when watching this movie again is that it draws you in to the storyline and it moves pretty quickly.
I would have liked,
and so even though there's the funniness, right?
Yeah,
it still grabs you.
It is
pulls
fast.
you in.
Yeah, it's quick, right? Like it's well, you've got the great opener with you got the mystery is introduced because you've got Egg being interviewed by the FBI.
Yeah.
And then you get, the transition to Jack Burton, this, truck driver, this uber male truck driver, misogynistic guy. It's a great, it does grab you, you know what I mean? But I wish they would have explained some of the mysticism a little bit more. Like there's a reference to the point where they're watching, they're in Lopan's lair and, the green-eyed girls are, in this trance. Though the white girl, the American girl, isn't. She's kind of faking it. But then they like grab the burning blades and they're like, oh, they survived the burning blades. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? I was like, why is that significant? Or what is the burning blades? That they rise up, they rise up to touch the stone that then vibrates green. And he's like, like they are pure, they do have the life force that I can suck out of their veins or whatever it is. It's like,
they kind of a lot of it they kind of leave to you piecing things together, right? It's kind of like we'll let you piece this darkness together to what you think it is. And
who were all the other people that they were surviving? Were they just like trapped in like pens or jail or something? Because
those girls they got,
they're just all like sex trafficked girls.
I think so, which was really interesting.
Because they're really introducing a kind of heavy dark thing.
And it's so weird. Like not weird, it's just so, I don't know, it's so, I guess, Jack Burton, but he's just sitting in this like brothel where I'm sure it's all sex trafficked women, right? And he's just kind of casually undressing, asking questions. But the fact that he continues to undress, just always, I'm like, what are you doing?
I love how he puts on.
He's just like, yeah, I'm ready. We're gonna do this.
I love how he puts on that nerdy persona for that whole scene. It's so great.
Yeah, he's got like a Dwight vibe going on.
It's so funny too because he's like enjoying it.
Well, it's and I think that whole scene is so weird to me because there's humor there, but then like you said, there's like this serious. I don't think as a kid I thought nothing of it, but as an adult you're like, yeah, those are probably all sex trafficked women.
I think I was disturbed. I think I was like, I think I remember maybe of coming of age and being like, there are places where you can just go and pay for sex. Like, now I know it's a brothel, but I think I was like, well, that's really interesting. Of course, the madam who's, trafficking all these girls gets her demise. I noticed that they willingly killed her off by falling debris. It's like, yeah. And
I wonder all those if they would have rescued them if the thunder, lightning, rain
didn't show up.
If they
showed up and they show up and abduct the green-eyed girls in that scene, right? That's when that happens.
Oh, that's true. And then they rescue them. Yeah, that makes sense. Then they rescue them when they go to get the two girls.
Which is interesting, right? I mean,
I wonder if they would have rescued them otherwise.
Yeah, it's a really profound message though, that like it's interesting that you've got this character that, you know, could be hated on for his machoism and misogyny, but like he is rescuing trafficked girls, you know, from demise,
well, and it's
from this
interesting
darkness.
because it's almost like an after effect or side effect also, which is an interesting kind of point of view with this movie. You know, there's a lot of these women that are basically like sex slaves, right?
Yeah.
And then there's these two women, really the one that's, you know, supposed to
The
be
virgins,
the wife, right?
Yeah.
And their whole reason for doing this is to save these two girls, and then they become like kind of the unlikely hero and save all these women. But it's kind of an interesting point they're making in this movie, that they don't matter, which is kind of that is the point in life. These sex trafficked women, they're just they come upon them. They're not the reason they're there. They just come upon them. They just end up saving them, but that's not the reason they're there. They're not there to save these women who, you know, really there's all these women that need to be saved. And it's kind of interesting because I think in life we tend to shy away from the big things that maybe could use some saving. And when those big things do get saving, I wonder how often it is just happen chance. Yeah, it's a byproduct of something maybe else that we're doing. So I don't know if that's kind of the message they're giving, but it's an interesting point of the movie for me, the whole like brothel or sex slave.
And it's interesting too, because, you know, I'm thinking about how Kurt Russell gets pulled into this whole world. And you know,
from gambling and wanting his money, right?
Yeah. Like what's the guy's Wang Chi, but they talk about friendship, and Kurt essentially does. I mean, he gives up the money, right? Like he doesn't pay him at the end, I don't think.
He gives him the check. He gives him the
he does the
3 times, right? And that's kind of a fun scene too, where Jack is like, no, it's all good, and he's like, no, it's 3 times or whatever, because you're worth it. And Jack's like, yeah, you're right, and takes it.
So
I think he does try to say no, it's okay at first, but then he ends up taking it.
But there definitely is a part that, like, you know, he's there initially for the money, but then it's not. It's about friendship.
Well, that's why it's like a Han Solo type story arc.
Great point.
Which is really interesting to me, and kind of his mannerisms, and that's why I really would be cool. I think it'd be cool to know, and maybe there's an interview out there somewhere where someone asks, hey, how'd you kind of get the idea for what you're going to do with this character? But he, you know, Solo would have been 77, and I think this was 86. So you would have had episode 4, 5, and 6, right? Star Wars, and then
you think
Return of the Jedi, and what's the one that everyone loves? I can't think of the name right now.
Empire?
Yeah, Empire Strikes Back. Sorry.
What do you think? Do you think Jack's character progresses as a person? I mean, is the progression that he wasn't bothered about the money, even though he got it, and that's just kind of the role that he functions as, this macho man that shows up and defeats the evil in the universe?
That's kind of what I was thinking, like with when he just kind of walks out, right, and is like, no, I'm not going to kiss her. It's kind of like you feel like there's progression, but then at the end, I'm like, I don't know if there is any progression for him.
Just that's who he is.
Yeah, which was, I thought, an interesting thing. And that's kind of where you get the vibe of maybe this is a play on action movies, right? Maybe this is kind of like a Galaxy Quest, where it's its own movie,
a little bit,
but it's more of a satire or spoof of that genre, right?
Well, it's interesting too, because the opening scene, Egg's like, they're asking about this Jack Burton in his truck, and he's like, leave him alone.
Yeah.
Like, let him be what he is. You know what I mean? Like, he plays this role in the Jack Burtons, because it's interesting too, because there's a lot of those Jack Burton personality types in the military, you know, where they show up and take care of business. You know what I mean? They get their paycheck, but they're really good dudes. Like, they're guys that care about the things that are good and right. You know, they want to protect, you know, the
you're right, because
minorities.
Ultimately, Jack did, you know, contributed to what was right, like rescuing and crushing evil. And then if I remember right, I think he did like kind of say, no, you don't need to pay me, but even though he accepted it in the end.
Sure. So well, and Wang, and like, you know, it's interesting too, because the fact that he's out there as this not unhinged like crazy, but not connected male, he allows Wang to have a restaurant and a family, right? Because he came in and swooped in and kind of destroyed, these evil forces. The other thing that's really interesting too about the heroes and the hero group in this movie is like they really are overmatched, you know what I mean, by Thunder, Rain, and Lightning and Lo Pan and his
that's why they need
magic from his face.
Egg, right, to come in and create this basically
journey.
Witch's brew or sorcerer's brew, right?
Do they drink it?
They drink, They
that's right, because they're all like
powers,
they're all like bouncing
and the
around.
funny thing for me is it's noticeable. The effects of that brew is noticeable on everyone except for Jack. Jack's still the same to me. Like he has the quick reflex where he catches a knife and then throws it back, right? But he already had that, right? So it was really interesting that after they take this witch's brew, like everyone's like super powerful, and then Jack's like still Jack.
I'm still me. The scene too when Wang is facing off against, I don't know if it's Lightning, I think it's Lightning, where Lightning is like flying through the air,
so
like upside down and backwards. I noticed too that he ended up like in multiple positions on the way when they're headed towards each other. But I love the whole like showing his blade, and then like Lightning just like ends up like in the gutter, stabbed or whatever. I thought it was really interesting how Thunder dies, right? So like all the other ones die, like the one blows up in the belly of the Buddha. There's got to be,
which is really funny to me, that he just like expands himself and explodes, but he doesn't do it quick enough to really do anything. Everyone runs away because they see he's expanding. So then really he just dies.
So is that just frustration? It's just like he dies because Lo Pan is dead. So he's noticing that Lo Pan is dead. So it's just like his minion master has been destroyed, and so he just doesn't know what to do with himself. So
it could be. But it's like a Charlie and the chocolate factory type deal, right?
How does
who is it? What's the girl's name that that eats the candy and blows up all
Victoria
purple? I can't remember
with a V,
but that's what it reminded me of. Is
like it's bumped out. It's so weird. We should totally do Charlie. We should do the old Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah,
I love that show. So I don't remember. Do you remember how Rain dies? So the one guy explodes. The one guy blows up. Lightning blows up in the belly of the Buddha, right? I don't remember how the other one dies. Is it Wang that kills him?
Yeah,
because like Wang has his super kung fu powers that he's
after he takes the brew, right, and then he kills him, right?
Well they took the brew before they did their wilderness journey in the underworld, right? Which is like kind of cool that they all like, and that's where the monsters, the beholder shows up and the one other monster shows up in there.
I think they take the brew right before they go into
the underworld.
Yeah. So I don't remember. Somewhere in there, all three of them die, except for the Razor dude from TMNT 2, the Beast, the scary Beast.
So I feel like there's something else for me to like connect the dots on that I'm not about Lo Pan. So he's just this old guy, but we don't really get a clear dialogue.
So there's the dialogue. There's a dialogue where I think Egg talks about why he became who he became Immortal? 2,000 years ago. Do you remember that? It's like a real short dialogue.
I guess it must have not.
And it doesn't give a lot, but he's like 2,000 and something years ago. I can't remember. There's a very specific number. He
made a deal with someone?
No, it was like he was subjugated or something by the emperor or something at that time, and because of that subjugation he then became immortal. Maybe he became like an immortal servant or something, or maybe because of that he kind of was really upset and then found a way to make himself immortalized, and or maybe became like a sorcerer himself or something like that. It was something like that. I think I don't think there was necessarily, there might have been a deal at some point, maybe after, but I really feel like I remember it was something like with him becoming a servant or a slave or something.
So, one of these like
ruler.
websites is saying that like maybe it was like his intention to like rule the universe.
Well, yeah, I think ultimately, right? If you want,
I guess that's always the bad guy's goal, is to be
yeah,
the head of the atypical structure and be the one that's in charge of all things. Because he's definitely, well, I mean, I guess with the brothel of, or with his sex slaves, you know, it's just this evil, indulgent self. You know what I mean?
yeah, it serves like two purposes, right? It serves a monetary, you know, I need power, right? Power over women,
his layers,
money,
all,
and then it serves the purpose of weeding out the green-eyed girl, right? Because they're just constantly
that's their virtue,
girls.
right? Well, they're both metaphors of virtue, right? Because you've got this like virgin Asian princess coming over. You know, she's, you know, mysterious and kind of overly innocent. And then you've got I'm forgetting what's her name, Gracie Law. You know, she's this do-gooder that's trying to save these girls that end up in sex slave, right? So she's virtuous and good. And so it's like Lo Pan, or evil, wants the most virtuous good to feast on, like that empowers them the most to devour and eat that, you know.
Well, it's kind of the
like
sacrifice of the virgin, right? Is what gives ultimate power, and that's kind of
evil
story, that's constant. And I think that is the idea with him. I'm guessing, it's to rule over the world, but I think they do give context to how he got there, like what maybe was a part of him going down that path. I just can't remember exactly what they said, but it started like over 2,000 years ago. I do remember that because I remember thinking, holy cow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, well, and clearly, and it's interesting too, because the mystic egg seems to, you know, have an ancient feel to him as well, right?
Yeah, and I don't think
he's almost
really
figure get any that's been around.
Backstory for him.
We don't,
right?
And he's still there after. I mean, he's still kind of there in the backgrounds.
Which you could do a spin-off story
with Egg.
It doesn't even have a Jack, right? But it just has more of a story about Egg and what he's gone through, how he became.
Why Egg?
I don't know if that's his actual name or if that's just his American name that he
uses. That's the character's name.
Well, Egg. That's what I mean. Yeah, like that's what he goes by. I don't know if that's like his given name or that's just the Egg, or just the name that he uses in America or not. They don't ever specify for him. But Egg, you know, he's the tour guy, right? Isn't that his job, is giving the tours of the Chinatown or whatever? And I think that, no, I don't know. Maybe his name.
I wonder if eggs have some grander symbolic place in the Asian culture. I feel like they do.
They could.
Yeah, I think that maybe they do. Maybe there's some significance.
I don't know.
But he's a fascinating and interesting character.
Yeah. Man. We're deficient in Asian culture.
I totally am. Which is part of why this movie's cool.
It's really
because it's got this
so much,
like mysterious
unknowns.
Well, and everything visually about it like isn't like what I would like. My layer wouldn't look like Lo Pan's. You know what I mean? Like the gold and the, you know, the like the minion, like soldier warriors of statues everywhere, and
the is it the room of like Buddhas that get knocked over, the domino effect. Is that where one of them dies? Is in that room when all the Buddhas get knocked over? Something happens in that room.
How dare you knock over all the Buddhas?
Yeah, there's like 20 of them or something that get knocked over.
There's something going on with them trying to give you some message about Buddhas too, because the Buddhas are being knocked over, and then one of the ninja minions dies and explodes in the belly of the Buddha.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's just like it being internalized or subdued. Maybe the Buddha and the idea of awareness and being present, you just kind of internalize it. You just internalize the confrontation or the conflict of the universe, you know.
It's kind of funny. Sometimes when we're talking about these things, my mind's like, maybe there's nothing. Like maybe it's just nothing. And we're just like thinking.
No, whenever I that could be so, but whenever movie people do significant things, they're not just doing it to do it. I mean, I suppose there might be some directors that just think it looks cool. Like, what's the guy that does like the Transformer movies? Is that Michael Bay?
Michael Bay, yeah.
He's just about a big look. But most directors are doing things for reasons, you know, like even if they don't think you get it, like that's a part of the art.
Well, and who directed this one?
Oh, let's look.
Was it it was
John Carpenter.
Carpenter, right? Which John Carpenter, what else has he done?
Let's look. His known for The Fog, Halloween, The Lie, like a lot of kind of dark
I thought
a bunch of Halloween movies, a bunch of the Myers movies.
That's what I thought. I thought it was really interesting because I was like, I
all
think
about
that's Carpenter. Didn't he also do Scream also, or is that
no, it's not on the filmography. No,
who's the Scream guy? What's his name? He's done a bunch too.
I can look here in a second. Yeah, it's literally everything that's ever been done with Halloween movies, this guy has done.
Yeah, that's what I thought was really interesting. When I saw his name, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the Scary Movie guy. And so he did this movie. And so I don't know, which is really interesting because if I remember right, with Halloween, John Carpenter really wanted to do a scary movie that didn't have blood, right? It was just suspenseful and scary, but it didn't need to have the gore. And it's really interesting because this movie kind of has that flair of mystery, unknown, and you don't like, there's nothing, I don't remember
gratuitous. There's nothing gratuitous about it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, even when Jack Burton like knifes him in the head, it's just like in the head. I mean, it's not gross.
Yeah. And it's over. So I think that's really interesting. So maybe John had some thoughts about Buddha. I don't know.
Yeah. Wes Craven is the director.
Oh, Wes Craven. That's right. Yeah. Wes Craven's the other one. So Wes Craven's done a bunch of scary movies also.
Yeah. He did Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh,
yeah.
That's the most terrifying movie of my life.
Yeah. So
then destroyed me as a kid.
John Carpenter and Wes Craven. So yeah, if I remember right, John Carpenter was big into, he probably does. I bet you there is some meaning in Big Trouble in Little China, just because I feel like John Carpenter, when I've seen stuff on him, he's big into creating like a story and not needing, the thrill of the story and not needing
this movie delivers on thrills. I mean, geez Louise. Stuff. I mean, the opening, I love like that there's this interesting like turf war going on between these Asian
that is
factions. Classic. You know what I mean? It's just so cool.
That is
it's so typical of like Chinese. Like it's true. Like I remember like my favorite. Like I used to love watching kung fu movies as a kid on like channel 29 on the other knob on your TV. And I remember always being intrigued by Asian culture and that there were these like clans. And I was always like, that's so cool. Like, what is that? Like, what's a clan? Like, we don't have that in America. These like family groups or whatever that were always like these kung fu movies are always about like kind of a champion for the clan, that would fight, like face off against each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's probably my favorite scene of the whole movie.
Oh, the introduction
is them in the alleyway where they're kind of stuck and there's these wars going on. And then you have thunder, lightning, and rain. And then you have Lo Pan, and you get all of this in this like 10-minute scene.
So cool.
And it's intriguing and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid having him drive through Lo Pan and me just being like, that is so freaky, but
and then he like shows up behind.
Yeah, it's like, what is this? and then the light coming out, and Jack goes blind from
He's
it
like,
or whatever.
Yeah, he's all like,
it's so, and then they're splashing water.
Wait, yeah, they're splashing water from the puddle. He's like, oh yeah, it's better. And I'm like, really? Some puddle water in your eye from the evil mystic, and you're good to go. He's like, yeah, in my eye. I remember like watching that scene and being like, what were they thinking on that one? Like, really? That did it? Like, really? The dirty puddle water? Yeah. Oh yeah, I can see. Yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah,
it's like we need some dirty. It's like we need some kind of recovery from the light blinding of the evil the evil 8-foot ninja master. Oh yeah, some dirty puddle water, that'll do it.
It's awesome. But yeah, so that is my favorite scene.
So funny. Yeah, that is. Yeah, I mean, him descending down on the lightning is wicked cool.
Yeah,
come down like, and that's part of what just, again, I think the sound quality of this movie just pulls and makes all that real. And I absolutely,
that makes sense with Halloween too, right? Because Halloween, I remember seeing something where John Carpenter was like, yeah, the music has to be. And what's really interesting is I'm pretty sure John Carpenter did the music also for Halloween and directed, and then I think he did the music for this. I'm not 100% on that, but I think he did do the music for both. And it's really interesting because music gives such an emotional connection, right? To a movie.
Well, that's one of the things that Star Wars knocked out of the park, is movies hadn't done what Star Wars did in
and John Williams is just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, well, kudos to what's his bucket, who's the director of Star Wars? Lucas, for having the vision to realize, this is going to work. You know what I mean? But yeah, that scene, and then the scene in the lair where they're defeating the ninjas and the girls, like the big skull. The big skull with the neon, like, I don't think as really a kid, cool. Like, it really stood out to me. I'm like, they've got red neon, green neon lights like behind everything. I'm like, that's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just
that's where I think that scene, I think they really knocked out of the park. I mean, everything is just really good.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
We encourage everyone to go watch it.
Yeah, the pacing, the danger, the mysticism.
Yeah, it's a quick movie. Like it keeps you going the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have time to be like, okay, what's when's this gonna start moving again? I enjoyed it. It was a fun discussion.
Good times, and you don't know what you're gonna get next, because you're gonna get Road Trip podcast
excitement.
Maybe we should totally talk about
we can talk about whatever.
The Stormlock archives.
Maybe we'll talk about boring things, and people will be like, what is this?
What in the world are you guys doing?
This is what these guys talk about all the time.
It's gonna be good. Road Trip coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Enjoy. Check it out.
Adios.